thinking about
Dan?
buying. I'm thinking about buying more stock in that mining company.
It's not a bad
Well,
idea.
I'm still not on this inventory shortage thing, and I get what you're saying, and I've read a lot about that as well. But the the reality is, do you remember? Okay, do you remember when the airbags were in short supply? Do you remember when the
Yep.
transmission cables were in short supply? All right.
Oh yeah.
So when those things happen because of recalls and because of whatever, when those things happened, they put a stop sale. They deployed different resources, but they went out and they got more of them. It delayed things. We're not talking about delay. We're talking about what's being advertised and hyped up as a shortage. You're not we're out of cars and this and that. It's like okay, I I don't know if that's accurate.
Man, something just dawned on me.
Hmm.
So normally, as we're waiting for the show to fire up, it's Friday. We're usually talking about alcohol and stuff like that. That I would totally think we would be talking to you about, Chris. This is the first time I think we've ever had a serious conversation with someone who probably can have a lot more
Less
fun
likely to.
yeah, especially with your Jack Nicholson photo.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Um, I would, that stupid test everybody was taking on Facebook, how bad you're tempered. So, my sister's is like 200%, which is like maniacal, right? My half brother is like 110%. I took it; it was like 5%, and everyone was like, "There's something wrong with this test." I said, "No, I mean, I've been doing yoga, going to therapy, popping Prozac. I mean, I'm good. I'm good." And uh, of course, I jested something about the yoga, but even Sean was like, the old Vitale would have never done that. The old Vitale, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, what? Anger management. And it's funny because I said it before you did months ago, and everybody's just like, man, you can't ruffle him anymore. I don't know what the hell happened.
Hmm. I was just thinking it's a good thing your sister's married to a comedian.
When she's groggy, she wakes up like in the middle of the night or her alarm's going off and she's trying to, hit it to turn it off. He'll record it and then he'll use it and play it on stage. Oh God.
All right, here we go. All right. We're all here and you're getting a taste of Chris Vitale's hair.
Well, I was trying to do it like Kirshner's, but I didn't have that much conditioner.
Whatever.
You need a big blow dryer for that too.
A big blow dryer.
The one that Princess Vespa has in Spaceballs. That's what you need. So yeah, here we are, and happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
And I've known Chris for a few years now, and I've never seen your hair that long, man. I can't get over it.
Well, I decided to move away from the clean cut corporate look. I mean, we're starting this new company, Life Widgets. We started it, and I told Jerry, I said, every tech genius, they have their partners, and one of them's like, you be the Steve Jobs, and I'll be Wozniak. And Wozniak was frumpy, longer hair and everything, and he's like, yeah, okay, I could do that. But yeah, no, I don't know. You know what it was? Cast, broken foot, COVID, couldn't go around anyway. And then one day my wife said, I like you with longer hair. You kind of look like Jeff Kirshner. I said, I'm keeping it long.
Yeah, right. Hey, if you can do it, great, right?
Yeah.
I'm going for a Russian oligarch look.
Now, why? We were talking before the show, and this morning we were texting back and forth, and I was fully expecting you in a tracksuit today. What happened?
Well, I don't know if you told Kirsch or not, but it was my idea. I said, why don't the three of us go on in tracksuits, right? Tracksuit Friday. And Alex like, oh yeah, great. So I literally went upstairs and changed. And then he comes clean. He says, I don't even have a tracksuit. And I said, send me your measurements. I'm sending you.
I don't have a matching one.
Well, I'm sending you guys custom tracks. It's velour because velour is beautiful. And Alex, he said, no. So if you look, I have a different shirt on. I literally went and changed, and then I had to go change again because I don't want to be the only guy in a tracksuit.
Oh, there's a good one. You nailed the Russian oligarch look. That's funny. Well, I assume.
What are we talking about today?
Vitale's hair.
Yeah, my hair. What conditioners we use? What time's happy hour? Products.
No, I don't know if Chris Vitale needs an introduction here. We have had him on Refresh Friday before, and we did a crazy thing where he had Vitale and I think Drew Mint on, and Joe Webb showed up, and it was like a smorgasbord
Open.
Yeah, just people screaming,
Insulting each other was great.
Yeah, pretty much. That was fun. I do believe we owe Drew another show for that one, but yeah. So Vitale, we go back to your. Do we want to call them Latman days, or we call them iMagic Lab days?
Either or.
That's right. You used to work for Latman, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm fond of both. I did his bidding, and I learned a ton. So I was fresh out of the dealership back then, so no ill will there whatsoever.
Yeah, how's he doing now? Do you keep up with him at all?
Yeah, we talk every so often. Doing well. I think the company is now called VCRM, or maybe their domain is now VCRM. But I've seen it at my buddy's store, actually, not too far from me. And the former CRM suite, if that's what it is called now, VCRM, I think is really come along nicely. They're incorporating a lot of things into it now that weren't there before, and it seems to be working really nicely. For my friend, he owns a Mazda dealership, so things look like they're going well.
So can we? So he's changed the name of it again. Is that all right? So what does he get the award for the most different names of a company or a product in automotive? So
of the same product.
Well,
iCar
I think
Connect, iCar Magic.
iCar Connect, iCar Magic.
It was.
Dealer CRM.
I think it was iConnect.
Yeah,
CRM. No, I think what it is I think it's the normal graduation and the market and what's happening and the CRM is kind of catchy. I mean, like phone ninjas. If you try and go buy something right now, a domain with ninjas in it, you're going to pay 5-6 figures.
Dude, I think I was with Jerry whenever he registered that domain. I think we were like in the middle of a conference and we were talking about it. And I think it was San Fran, if I'm not mistaken. I remember him. I was like, well, just go ahead and pull up GoDaddy or whatever and see if it's available. And I was like, there's no way that's freaking available.
And he got it.
It was. Yeah.
I
was like, you better go ahead and register that like right now.
I bought a few Ninjas domains, just different things, right? And I had them.
Russian Ninja?
Right. Say again?
Russian Ninja?
Yeah, they're. But no, they're. I get offers all the time on them. Where people say they want to buy them and whatnot. So it's where it's at.
Is Velour Ninja available?
You know what? I don't know, but I'm gonna go over on this monitor here and check it out.
Well, we are here today to talk about something that is near and dear to phone ninjas. That's actually talking on the phone, but with an outsourced BDC. So I thought maybe we can, instead of jumping into what's going on right this minute, maybe we should go back in time and talk about how BDCs came to be, and maybe give a little history lesson there. So does anyone want to go first, or should we jump into the Traver days? Remember them?
I can tell you where it started for me, but you guys are in charge.
Go ahead.
So when I sold cars, I was in an internet department, right? and they did have a BDC upstairs, but they didn't handle anything on the web. They handled snail mail, they handled phone calls and things of this sort. So then from there, um, you know, I went to a dealer group that didn't have either, which was fascinating to me. They still got the leads coming through via fax, if you remember that, right? Web leads. So then after there, I went to Rick Case as a GSM, and Rick Case had both BDCs. They had an outsourced BDC, a centralized BDC in Florida, and I was in one of the Ohio stores. And then they had in-house BDCs for the big stores, like the Powerhouse and this and that. And so it was really interesting because, I'd seen separation, interdepartment BDC, and then I had seen neither rather, and then I saw both in the same group. And because my store was smaller and in the Ohio market, we had to use a centralized out of store BDC. So I mean, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly personally firsthand, and that was a long time ago.
That's a funny one, Ryan Montville.
Alex, you ran the BDC for Checkered, right?
Yeah, but I wasn't the original. So, and there were two that were started during my time that I ever saw, but the original one was started by Cameron Daly and Jim Fennell, I think. They were Honda salespeople and recognized that they could do this, and that was in the late 90s. But eventually that petered out, and I think that was just because that became a centralized to the entire Checkered Flag Group BDC. But I was a salesperson during that time, and I can tell you that I actively worked to sabotage it. And that was because we had to split every freaking deal with them. It was like, all right, so some jackasses sitting down in a cubicle down there, calling customers and then taking credit for half my deal I spent 6 hours on.
Right.
Screw them. And so, and that was the attitude. We didn't understand, the internet wasn't really a thing and whatnot. And so, a little ignorance went a long way. So anyway, it was kind of funny and ironic they ended up having to start another one a few years later. But in between, we hired Traver. And so Traver was the big BDC company at the time. And didn't Jerry Tebow come out of Traver as well?
I want to say yeah, but if I say yeah, it's going to be wrong. It was a different one, but something like that, yeah.
It was
Jerry started in the store himself, and his results were, just as an individual, his results were so amazing on the phones that they made him the corporate training director and the corporate BDC. He was like over the group. And then from there, I know he went to somewhere like that as a consultant or as a vendor.
Yeah, he was pretty good at that. So it was our time with Traver where it really created this sort of a true sort of call center where the salespeople, if they weren't taking ups, they were in the back and they were making phone calls. And we had made facilities for them, especially at our Toyota location, where they absolutely could not see the lot. So it was a room, no windows. You might as well have been in Vegas, and you had no idea what time it was. You're just making phone calls out of the CRM. So but the salesperson's built to take ups. They're not really built to work on the phone unless there's somebody there who's truly trained them. And
well, I think what you just said is the important piece there, right? The training. I believe in the universal soldier. I think it's 2021. And this is what I believe, and this is what I practice, and this is what I hire. Now, I know what the reality is, okay? Because obviously we sell it, but the universal soldier is able to take care of a customer in person, take care of a customer via chat, take care of a customer via the telephone, the internet. You do your follow up, you do some prospecting, you do when somebody walks in the store at first. I remember the old Dukers when I was selling in the internet, probably come over and say, I need you to email this guy. Like, if for half a deal, I will. Or I need you to send this attachment. No. It's my deal if I do it. Go put it on a carrier pigeon, right? So what you said is really, really the important piece of it, right? It comes down to training. But then your other example, I firmly believe as well, where, half a deal. I mean, here, if store managers truly knew how to run a BDC, they wouldn't need a BDC in the first place. Think about that. So it's like half a deal for the person that you're directing all the calls to. That's not really fair, right? To your point, and you work on it 6 hours for a half. So I think those are two really important points. Training someone how to do these things properly, right, correctly for today, and also being able to manage it properly and correctly for today, which includes comp.
Yep.
And that's why the virtual and the outsourced option is such a popular one and such an effective one.
Yeah.
Because the same bad habits we all know salesmen have in any industry, not just automotive, they're going to have in the BDC as well, right? I mean, you're going to have them.
So we got the history of the BDCs somewhat in there, at least our own histories with them.
Yeah.
So, today, and I think over the past 20 years, a lot of dealerships have definitely experimented by doing their own in-house BDCs. And typically those things are only as good as the personnel that are there to run it. So that's when they fall apart, when the revolving door on the front of the store starts moving again and out goes that person who loved it. So, getting to the virtual BDC, right, that's a good reason to have one, right? So that's one where you don't have to worry about them walking out the door on you.
Right. There's a lot of pros to it. Like you said, there's no favoritism, right? You can't go up and grease somebody for sending you calls or working a little bit harder for you. There's no threats from the salespeople where I'm going to go up there and give him or her a piece of my mind. There's no cherry picking, right? You don't need to manage it. It's one less thing a sales manager needs to do, especially for the stores that don't want to hire a dedicated BDC director, which in my mind is at the same level as a GSM. The showroom close days, the hours, the hiring people, the staffing. When you have an outsourced BDC situation, you just light up how many seats you need, and if volume overcomes it, they're equipped to handle it. So there's a lot of nice things. There's a lot of benefit there. Not to mention, most of the ones today, not just ours, but most of the ones today that I am familiar with are all remote positions. And Jeff, Alex, I don't know how much in Virginia Beach, but in Cleveland, from probably end of November to beginning of March, there's days when nobody can show up, but we're still open because you had a couple sales managers. I might or might not be one of them that would still show up somehow, right? Because of the weather, you get the inclement weather, and all of a sudden you're really doing yourself a disservice. Where if you have a virtual BDC, the show goes on.
Same with
Good point.
a lot of dealerships realize this with the COVID quarantines too.
Yep.
So having that, I think there is one other thing in there that you especially forget or don't think about. At least the nice way we had things set up at Checkered Flag was so much of the the mundane things were handled by a corporate office or an operations center. So one of the things you don't totally have to consider so much when you're hiring somebody is the benefits.
Yeah.
And that's those are expensive. So also that gets that off your plate too.
Well, and looking at it, like Checkered Flag obviously is an exemplary group, right? And like Rick Case, exemplary group. So, when I worked for AutoNation, I worked for Mullinax, and they're an exemplary group, obviously, but we were left to our own devices with the BDC and in-house. I had a heck of a time hiring those people. I mean, I had two guys that were magic, and then, gosh, when one of them took a day off or one of them, took a vacation, we all felt it, and I just, for a solid year, I was looking for people for the BDC and just could not find them. So I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons there on both sides of it.
Yeah,
but
what are the pain in the ass parts of a virtual BDC? Like, obviously, I don't know what inventory you have on the ground.
Yeah,
because I'm always back and forth. Like, you sort of got to weigh it out. Obviously, there's, of course, there's pros and cons, but I think one time I sat down and did a Ben Franklin closing myself, and every time I did it, it just made more sense to outsource to BDC.
Yeah, my favorite one of all times. I had a woman call me one day at the dealership. I was a general manager. I just happened to, for whatever reason, I was by a phone and I grabbed it. And, not being a good general manager, being a good salesman. And she wanted to know if this car was ever smoked in. And she noticed that on some of our cars, it said non-smoker, but on this one, it didn't say non-smoker. And I said, wow, that's a great question. Let me go out and sniff this car. So then I, of course, went out, smelled it, and I'm like, look, it doesn't smell like it was smoked into me. I don't, but I mean, I don't know how sensitive I am to it. I'm in a car dealership. I'm around smokers all day long, So to your point, other than something like that, and it's happened to me once in, 25 years, do you really need to go out and touch every car today? I mean, I know we say that sometimes to give us that Twix moment, but I mean, if every time you took a phone up, you went out and touched the car, you'd never take a second phone. You'd be outside looking,
That also comes down to vehicle availability. A lot of dealerships call to action on the websites, check availability. And that's usually one of the objections dealerships will have. Well, if we get someone on the phone, I want to be sure 100% that, that vehicle's still here whenever that customer asks that question. But I've always taken an approach, just assume it's in stock.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying do a bait and switch,
no.
But at least initially, you can always call the customer back, apologize. Exactly. I didn't realize there was, there's been a deposit, laid on the vehicle. But if anything goes down, we'll give you a call back, et cetera. But just assume that the vehicle is in stock. So that's an easy objection to overcome.
I could not agree with you more. And that's actually something we teach at Phone Ninjas on, as we do it and what we practice in our own BDC. But I think the bottom line there is we all talk about being customer centric and customer focused, and we all talk about, customer experience. And, Alex, customers are my life and they always have been. Even when I chase, you guys around at Checkered Flag, and you guys already are customers. I just would do it because you guys are a good group. But we have to also talk about what's good for us as automotive professionals, what's good for the dealership. And, let's be honest, the CEO of a company cannot be sitting in the support queue for 8 hours. He's not running the company, or she's not running the company. What's so different than, you're staffed with a sales team or BDC or whatever the case. And if you did everything a customer, wanted you to do, you'd never have any time to make a living. Literally never have any time to make a living. I hear calls that come through our BDC all the time, and they want videos and pictures and this, and I want this other angle. No, I want to hear the door slam. It's like, look, the pictures that are on there are the pictures that we have. The videos that are on it, that's the video that we have. If you thought enough of it to call, come on in. Now, it's not that cut and dry, but I mean, think about it. We're going to put two Camaros next to each other, close the doors on them, and then take a measuring tape to see, and these are new cars, not used, to make sure that there's not a different size gap. What are you, nuts? Come in. Right? But no, the cons, again, vehicle availability, if you have to get that intimate with it, which I don't agree with, I agree with Jeff. The bad appointments, salespeople will in-store overqualify, in-store pre-qualify. They overqualify and they pre-qualify. You're going to get more good appointments overall from an outsourced BDC that I've seen, but you're also going to get a higher number of bad appointments, right? What the store would consider bad appointments, quote unquote. Lying to customers inadvertently. And I say line because that's what the store, so what the store would say. But, for example, say my checker flag and I'm outsourced and, I don't know what they're Eastern, but let's say I'm Central and I tell you the wrong time or something like that. It was an accident. Well, you know what the customer comes, you lied to me. You lied to me. No, no. I'm in Chicago. You're in Virginia. It was an oops, right? But again, these are things that are very, very, very prevalent, and these are things that come up that we have to address. And morale, I think, is the number one big one. Morale, like Alex's example, I had to give up half of a deal because this guy took the phone call, or this girl took the phone call. I think if it's not presented properly, if it's not rolled out properly, morale could be it could be a morale killer. Other things that come to mind.
One of the issues I've always had is most BDCs are sort of stuck in a closet somewhere at the dealership, and they end up being really separate departments, whereas they shouldn't be separate departments if they're going to be at the dealership. I think one of the things you were discussing earlier was some favoritism, and as you pointed out, Alex, sometimes you get pissed off at someone at the BDC, especially if you're splitting deals. But almost every dealership I've been in that has a BDC at the dealership, that BDC is sort of like I don't want to say an afterthought, but just not integrated into the sales process.
So,
and like I said, a lot of times they're back, we're going to open up a BDC. So where do we put them? Well, there's this room back here.
The dungeon. The dungeon.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So, recently in the last 5 years, we were buying my wife's last vehicle, and went into the store. I had worked with the internet manager prior to this and their BDC, and had some numbers. So I walked into the store with the numbers and was basically told, "Oh, well, that's how they do things in the internet department. We do things differently here in the showroom."
What year was this?
This was we just turned her lease in, so it was 3 years ago.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Every deal's an internet deal.
That's the internet department.
It's also Vermont, and so
we don't honor the internet price here on the showroom floor.
Remember the two different prices? Do you guys remember that? We'd have one price on the cars and a different price
the
online.
Internet price. Well, if you want that price, you got to go through the internet. Well, I'm standing right here in your showroom.
I think in some states that's actually illegal, as it should be.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I mean, even back then, here, I will tell you this. I never actually physically visited Checker Flag, but I have been in some stores that really, really kill it with BDCs and internet and I'm sorry, BDCs and handling the leads and the phone calls and this and that and Cox Chevy Mazda, right? They have a beautiful BDC. They have a beautiful training facility. They take it very seriously, and I do believe one of the owners is actually in charge of the BDC now. And Paragon is another one in New York. I believe they just switched to outsource. I'm seeing things on LinkedIn, but I remember being at their BDC and touring it, and I was just like, God, this is amazing. I mean, the BDC was as nice as the brand new section of the showroom. And they had, the machines in there with free energy drinks and free waters and, and then, another one, just as an example, was like Big Napleton in Chicago, where they had a centralized structure, but they had individuals in each store, which was kind of an interesting one for me. So it was centralized and you were still at the store level, but it was still centralized. So, you didn't report to the person at the store, you reported to the person that was your BDC director. He was at corporate, but his team was at each and every store. And then another one that comes to mind really quickly, supercar guys, Tom White's dealer, Subaru, with Wichita. I was in that BDC and we toured all 5-6 locations. And again, it's off-site. It's a beautiful building. It's salesmen aren't allowed to go to the building. When I say off-site, I mean it might be on the lot, but it's a separate building. No salesmen are allowed to go there. There's no influence. There's no nothing. And they run a tight ship. And again, it's just, I've seen a lot of good. I've seen a lot of bad. But the good ones all take serious investment, significant process, and very, very serious training. And most aren't willing to do it. I know I wasn't when I was a general manager.
Well, there are some interesting comments coming through. And there's some polarization going on, as usual.
Uh-oh.
When you talk about doing things outside the store. Some people do it, and they're usually pretty quiet about it. They don't advocate for it too much. Do the managed services, the managed chats, those kind of things. And then the people who are actually really good at doing things in the store and have had success, they're very much against those managed services. And I think that there's some skill sets that people have. As a leadership team, as a management team, you might not be so good at truly understanding how to communicate bimanually through a keyboard, and you might need some help in the chat area. And
Yep.
or you might be the ultimate closer of all time, and that's how you grew your career. You might be killer at holding gross or that kind of thing, and you never had to develop phone skills. So you don't look for those qualities in the people that work for you, and you might need a little help again to outsource that a bit, because that's not something that's in your arsenal. You might have other redeeming qualities that really kick ass, but those might
I
not
think
be
that's
it.
I think that's well said. One of the biggest things that I find is people just don't know what to say, right? And it's a fine balance, because we don't want to cannibalize phone ninjas for virtual BDC. You don't want to cannibalize virtual BDC for phone ninjas. The most high performing stores deploy both. And even no, every call goes to the BDC. I can assure you, every call does not go to the BDC. It never does. If Jeff is a salesman and Alex calls in and Chris is in the BDC and he came and visited Jeff and then he calls to talk to Jeff, nope, we can't let you talk to him. You have to talk to Chris, who you don't know. He's in the BDC. Get out of here. They're going to let you talk to Jeff, of course. And if he doesn't know how to handle it, he's not going to do very well, right? But the interesting thing is, where I find a path is, a virtual BDC should supplement, in my opinion. This is not a company stance. This is my opinion. The virtual BDC should supplement the in-house team, whether it's an in-house BDC or whether the calls go to the floor. That's fine. But the number one thing that I keep seeing, number one, you can't find anybody to answer the phone. I don't care how well they're trained. You can't find anybody to answer the phone. And I was one of those GMs. Hey, unless it's the owner or his dad, you do not come in my sales meeting and bother me for anything. What if it's a customer? They can wait. And lunchtime, early mornings, toward the end of the day, people start sneaking out early. Saturdays, when everybody's busy. I mean, we have this huge focus on appointments. Everybody's busy, but the phones are ringing off the hook. So again, it's not necessarily something where you have to take it all away, but it's something where you want it there for when you need it, so every single opportunity gets realized or at least addressed.
I do think that, and I'm with you, Chris. I do want to come back to that point, because I've got a way I would have personally tackled things if I could rewind the clock to when I was running a BDC at Checkered Flag. But I do want to tackle something Drew Ament is pointing out, and that is that skill sets can be trained. That's true. So I totally agree with him there.
Yep.
You just need to know what skill sets to train, how to train, and then retain the people you did train. There's a lot going on there. So you're right.
I think there's something to be said about that, in when you're when you're training them. I mean, obviously, Phone Ninjas does coaching, training, ongoing, but it's a little bit different when you're taking calls from a multitude of stores and your only job is that type of repetition is muscle memory. I mean, that type of repetition, you get deadly good. So all the training in the world, but if you don't get as many calls as a virtual PD agent, which you will never, you don't have as many opportunities to try, right? And I'm talking about non-Phone Ninja stores. Phone Ninja store, yeah, we do the role plays and we do the calls and we do the one-on-ones and the coaching. And I mean, it's in front of them a lot. But I'm just talking your normal store, my dealership when I ran one and maybe yours when you ran one, it's really not fair to compare. It's like saying I have a Porsche and I like to drive fast, and then you have Mario Andretti next to me. Who's the better driver, right? Because that's all he does.
Yep. So, rewinding the clock a bit, going back to the checkered flag BDC, I'm with you. And you were saying something earlier about supplementing and helping and being a team, virtual BDC and in-store BDC. So I had an in-store BDC of 9 people at its peak. And I would say 3, 4 of them were really solid, really core. I didn't have to get in and really push them all the time. They were reliable. They were on time for work. They weren't taking 4-hour lunch breaks or disappearing or whatever it was. And then there was the rest. And that was a constant management problem. So if I could do it over again, I would have had a virtual BDC who did the mundane crap, calling the internet lead on the first phone call, finding out if there's someone over there, leaving that voicemail, that's a scripted voicemail that gives them a good whiff them to call you back.
Yes.
And then when they do call back, that goes to my talent, my in-house people who, I've trained and have an eye on and have all the reporting on and everything I need. So that's how I would do it if I could do it over again.
Same. I literally have nothing to add to that. Same.
All right. Ditto is a good answer.
So what you're saying, almost like a hybrid. So outsourced, but also someone in-house. Do you have one person, 2 people, or?
I think that depends on the size of the store, the volume of the calls.
And what kind of people you can hire. So like there are, a friend of ours with Dealer Refresh was recently having an issue. He had like 2 stellar people, but that wasn't enough. And so even with an outsourced BDC, still, the amount of stuff being generated wasn't enough for just 2. So, it was too much for just 2. I meant, and he could not find that third person. In fact, right now, his problem, what he kept saying was unemployment. Like everyone who he would be hiring are on unemployment, and it's that's too good right now.
What about any incoming calls? Would you channel those through the BDC, or would you allow the floor people to take those phone calls?
So you can do a couple of different things. You can have a ring through rate. That's like if the floor gets it first, and if they don't get it by the 3rd ring, then it goes to the in-house BDC. And if they don't get it by the 3rd ring there, then it goes to the outsource place. So you have fallbacks.
Okay.
That's one. Chris, I'm sure you got a couple.
Yeah, so what you just said, in a perfect world, I agree with. But the thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to keep the customer on hold for 45 seconds. You want to be under 40 seconds, right? And when you're on the dealership end of the phone and you hear it ringing, the customer's been hearing it ringing probably about 4 or 5 rings more than you have at a high end, right? Yeah. So, okay, ring, 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 and then it gets answered. Then ring, ring, ring. Okay, they don't answer. Then ring, ring, ring. It's like, okay, I can call the next store literally on Google 1 millimeter down with my thumb, and I'm calling them now. So, I would say they all go into the BDC. 60 to 70% are going to set an appointment. And then for that other, 30% to 40% that, they're going to want something over the phone that you really shouldn't do, but you kind of have to because it's today. Okay. Then you transfer it. Let me get somebody for you. I'll stay on with you. Do a warm transfer so somebody can handle it. Talking to 3 people, this is a big complaint that OEMs get when they, quiz, when they do the survey and they quiz people. How many people did you talk to get your answer? Well, I talked to the receptionist, and then I talked to this one, and then I talked to that one, and then they had to call me back, and then the manager called me. It's a joke. I understand you can't just empower everybody, but I will tell you, I don't even know if Jerry knows this. I may have told you, Alex, the last store I was general manager at, we got a phone call from Jerry. I didn't know him from Adam, and I think he just left iMagic at the time, and he said, "Hey, I'm doing free mystery shops. I'll call your store a few times, pretend to be a customer. I'll record it, and I'll send you. And if it disgusts you, you can hire me, and I'll make your people better." And I thought we did pretty well on the phones, right? I thought we did pretty well on the phones. He sent me the 3 calls. One guy resigned over it. And the other guy took the rest of the day off.
Was it that bad? They get their feelings hurt that bad?
Did you promote any of them to customer?
2 of the calls were his, right? 2 of the calls were his. So 2 out of 3. My point is this. That was so eye-opening. And here's the best part. Talk about a horrible decision that I made. Take a wild guess what I did. Did I hire Jim? No, that's more money. Guess what I did? Managers, you're all taking inbound calls now.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What? That's what I did.
That lasts real long. And then you find out that your managers are no better than the salespeople on the phone. Sometimes worse.
Exactly. That goes to Alex's point. You might be gifted at this and at this and at this, but this is a very, very niche thing that you need to be good at if you're going to be taking them, because you don't get a second bite at that apple. On an inbound call, you don't get a second bite at that apple. So yeah, I think the hybrid is a brilliant move. You supplement, you back up. I think it's going to depend on the store. How many, do you let who take it first, and then rings? And, there are some stores where you can't have receptionists, like some of those huge mega stores in Miami and in Texas where you got to have a phone tree. You got to have a press 1, press 2. You have no choice. Okay. But I think every store is going to be different in that aspect. But I think that's the right approach.
So right now, there's a comment from Christine here, and it just occurred to me as she said this, that there is an issue right this minute. So inventory shortages aside, I think a lot of dealers have not fully hired back the staff that they had prior to the COVID quarantines. So the national average I heard was about 85% of that capacity is now working back in the showroom again. And customers are still coming in and buying cars. It's a crazy market right now, like nothing I think any of us have ever seen in our careers. So, I would venture to guess the phones might not be getting answered a little more often than usual because of that. And that's understandable. That's not something to be ashamed of. And it's easy to look the other way, probably because you're making so much damn money too. It's like, oh, okay, I'm fat and happy, but that's going to turn.
I would say you're accurate. And, when I personally buy a car now, because I'm a civilian, I don't call somebody I know first. I put a lead out. I submit a request, or I pick up the phone and I call. I want to see. It's kind of market research for us now, right? And I just submit a request for something because my lease came due, and mine, not my wife's. I went to 8 stores in a 1-hour radius of my house. Not one phone call. I use my real name, so you can look me up on Google, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I use my real phone number, so you Google it. I think it even comes up and says, this is Chris Kelly. I've received not one phone call all I did was get a bunch of canned emails. Oh, there's Shaughnessy, worst person ever to buy a car. Hey, you're right. They're not handling the inbound calls. They're not handling the outbound calls. And I will tell you that I would say you're 100% accurate right now. It's like the housing craze. It's like for the real estate bust. Anybody was getting $1 million houses, man. Yeah, the gross and everything now, it's not going to last.
Yeah. Yep. It can't. It's unsustainable. So I do want to, I feel like we should just have Drew Ament come in here. If you're just watching the video, you're missing a lot of the context of his comments, but
throw him the link.
Drew's pushing it back pretty hard. So one of the things he was wondering is the capability of a virtual BDC to actually wheel and deal with a customer over the phone.
Yeah, they don't. They don't.
I think there is something that is developing.
There's something to be said about, but how
can.
often does that happen?
It really, here, there's two things that I look at here. And the first one is, are you going to follow a rock solid process, right? Process is going to include proper scripting. And I don't mean sounding like a robot, Ferris Bueller's teacher, monotone. I mean, honest to goodness, proper tonality, proper voice inflection. And if you guide them down the path, giving them enough information without giving it all away, that's the goal of the phone call. That is the goal of the phone call. You cannot take the market for the last 6 months and use that's operating in a vacuum. That's not realistic. So if you go pre-COVID, and I don't care who it is, you take any single person in an outsourced situation, and you give them the ability to do anything other than send a negotiation link, here's this, have at it. It's just, you can't find anybody to do it. And I don't think you want anybody to do it. Now, at the dealership level, sure. If you empower your people to do it, whether it's BDC or salesman, or you could work it with a manager, God bless you, do it. But we're talking about the same solution for two very distinct and different problems. The one problem is not everybody's getting handled. So let's handle them. And I think it was Jeff that just said, or maybe it was you, Alex, let them do the mundane stuff. Is everyone that calls this store an MBA? Is everyone that calls this store, can they calculate leases in their head? Of course not. So those type of people that really just want to know, what is it, 70% of every inbound calls about availability? Okay, let's take that 70% about availability and outsource it. And then the 30% that are the MBA NASA physicists, let the salesman handle them. And guess what? They probably can't anyway. But every store is different. You're going to empower some folks, and you're going to allow it in some BDCs and in some sales situations. That's fine. That's fine.
So I had an interesting one today. There's I wear glasses. I take them off for the show usually, but the shop that I like in town has employed a process where you have to make an appointment to go in since COVID started. And they do it for their benefit. It's very business, not customer-centric process. I can't stand it because it's very inconvenient, but I have to go by it because they're my favorite to work with at the end of the day. But so anyway, I called down there, and I realized as I'm talking to him, he's like being as transparent with me as possible as to why he can't get me in when I'm available. But what he didn't do was he wasn't taking control of the conversation. So I would be much more agreeable to his process and the way of doing things if he was scripted, had the voice inflection and things that you're talking about, Chris, to actually control me as a customer and say, look, this is why we do it. It's for your benefit. We're very serious about COVID. Our shop's small, and we have appointments scheduled at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and 11. I can get you in as soon as 12. Will that work for you today, Mr. Customer? If not,
perfect. I'll
set aside some time for you next week. If he had said that, I'd been like, okay, all right. Mm-hmm. but instead he's wishy-washy, and I'm like, now you're pissing me off, man.
Here, in 1989 or 88, my dad had a Ford Bronco, the big one, not the little one, the big one, right? Like a K5 Blazer, big Bronco. And it was the coolest truck at that time in my life. And my dad put a plow on the front of it. Okay. He had a Bronco with leather interior with a plow on the front of it. So he could plow his lots. Okay, fine. So he bought it from this little Ford store that has since closed years ago, Harbor Ford Lincoln. And he needed service one day because, of course, the plow on the front of this Bronco, not supposed to have a plow on the front of it, right? So anyway, he never wanted to go to Mullinax before it was AutoNation. He never wanted to go because it was too big. And he doesn't want to be cattle and get treated like a number, no. So I said, Dad, and I was, I don't know how old at the time, young kid, couldn't drive yet. I said, Dad, they're the only place that has these wild hours. They're open from like 5 a.m. until midnight or something every weekday. He needed service. He calls in there, and they had a BDC. Mr. Vitale, here's your number. Here's your customer number. We're going to call you, remind you the day before the appointment. Today, this is stuff we roll our eyes like, who doesn't do that? This is in 1989. This is Amherst, Ohio. I went with him. You're going to be on red team. They gave him a red thing. Pull your car up to the red area. They were different colored doors, different colored lanes. Went in, put him through, evaluated the issue, explained to him what he told them, gave him a realistic time frame for completion, offered him a service loaner or offered him the customer lounge. And this is before a service loaner is like, what? I never saw anything like it in life. And that's why Ed Mullinax was Ed Mullinax. But my point is, that was a properly handled situation. My dad was not a nice guy. He was in a bad mood already. To your point, Alex, here's how we handle it. Here's our script. They had a man or woman on the phone, just brilliant, very nice, understood, empathetic. I mean, you name it, man. In 1989, I could not agree with you more. That is literally what is missing. And guess what? They couldn't fix his truck. But he still went back there all the time for service and has bought cars from them subsequently, right? They couldn't fix the truck. They said, you shouldn't have put a plow on it. You're an idiot.
Well, your dad was one of the most loyal people. Once you got him, he was good to you back. Yep.
Yeah. But that to your point, that is a properly executed, you can't give every customer what they want, nor should you. And here's the right way to handle it. And they earned a customer out of it.
Yeah.
Scripts work.
We're really enjoying our echo chamber over here today, folks. I mean, the virtual BDC, for those of us who have run BDCs or worked with them and whatnot, is an answer. You could call it an escape hatch. You can call it, an expense, but I think in some ways it's an expense that some dealerships truly need to make. It's not for everybody. It's probably for most.
What are some of the things that a dealership, if they're thinking about outsourcing to BDC, is there like a top 5 questions you should be sure answered? Is there
that's a great
is
question.
there I know if we had an outsourced BDC, I would want a way to connect with that outsourced BDC as quick as possible. So can you get set up on a program like Slack? Something all the way down to just, a simple text message. I would want to be sure they've got some type of process set up where they can get a hold of someone here at the dealership within seconds,
Yeah.
So even if you do have a customer, maybe they're on their way from a long distance and they're calling to confirm availability, is there a way for them to get in touch with someone within seconds?
Yeah. So you have 2 questions as I heard it. I'll answer the first one second. What you just said about being able to get in touch with somebody. So obviously, I know ours intimately well, but I also try to keep up on the competition. And everybody that I have encountered, us included, has your list of people in an order: who's textable, who's not, who to call in which situation. So if there's a service fire, if there's a parts fire, if there's a sales fire, if there's a threat of violence against a dealership, which happens, who do you call, who do you text? um, we don't want the switchboard. We want the general manager, the owner's cell. I have an
Mhm.
owner's wife's cell. He doesn't carry a cell, she
Well,
does.
we don't need to know about all
Hey, anything to close a deal. No, but so
that.
yeah, there is. So the challenge, right, is not getting a hold of us. The challenge is getting a hold of them in those situations. So you do your best to disarm the customer, right? But it's not like somebody's sitting there with their cell phone. I mean, my phone's at the tower, and I'm on a TO. Hopefully we do have issues getting a hold of them. So we have an internal escalation process where if you can't get a hold of whomever, and you can't get a hold of who's next, so let's say it's the GSM and the GM, then you call me, call Jerry.
What about keeping the historical communication of the customer within the CRM? How do
Yeah,
you
that's a good one.
dispositioning the calls and things like that in the
Yeah,
right place?
so a lot of the inbounds, right? You can pop over the calls right in the
Get a
CRM.
hot fax.
Yeah, you send it over. Yeah, yeah. You got to make sure you have the correct fax number. No, but
We're
you
in the
send it
Stone
over like
Age,
ADF
man.
XML, right? You send it over, and you find out which one they have, and you designate it's a phone lead, right? And then the CRM takes over at that point. Outbound is a little bit more difficult, um, depending upon where they pull the list. A DMS list is always better than a CRM list, and a lot of your service calls, or the cars that you're getting from service customers that didn't buy from you, might not necessarily be in CRM. And there's always things to talk through, but there's nothing impossible today uh, that I've encountered. And nothing impossible that's worthwhile, right? Nothing impossible that's worthwhile.
Another one to ask is how many seats do you have? So, if it's like a BDC, a virtual BDC that's got 5 people, well, what happens if somebody's sick or they add more dealers all of a sudden? Are they going to be able to give you the attention you need at your store?
That's a good one. I would even ask it a little differently. Um, so let's take a checkered flag, for example, larger dealer group, and say, well, here's our average call volume. Here's this, here's this. Says, okay, well, how many seats you have, or how many staff you have, or personnel you have, really isn't. It doesn't matter, because they're all going to be dedicated to you. How many are dedicated to me? Number one, and number two, what does a contingency look like? And so like we had a dealer in December, in January. uh it was a pretty decent volume store. It was in Nevada, as a matter of fact, and their phones went completely down for 3 days over a weekend. It was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now we took their overflow calls on Friday, and we took their sales calls Saturday, Sundays. That was it. Well, the guy called me and he said, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, I think we can handle it. And so we have a partner that we use if we ever get overwhelmed, and we would lay calls off to them. But we didn't have to. We handled it. Now, if we were going to do that long term, we'd have to hire, or we'd have to reallocate. But in an emergency like that, people that were off and people that normally weren't working those days, just a quick text message to everybody: hey, dealer needs help. Weird situation. And we have a great crew, and everybody raised their hand and said, yeah. I mean, literally everybody.
Trying to think. I mean, my head goes into like other ones like with software and things that they're using because
Integration's a big one.
yeah,
Integration is a big one.
I'm just trying to think.
People now have the integration with CRM, where you want to make sure that obviously you have visibility to what's happening, but I don't think you need to have the level of detail, that if you're at the store level working it, you know what I mean? Where if you're at the store level working it, you're going to be able to go in and say, here's what I quoted, here's the numbers, wife got angry, husband left, whatever. But we're just trying to get them in the door, especially on some, hibernation type customers where they haven't engaged in a while. Does it really matter? I mean, some do, but does it really matter? Calls aren't getting made anyway.
And then I think the question from Jeff was, what are 5 things? So that's 4. I'm trying to come up with a 5th, and it might be, what's your escalation process? Some BDCs will have that documented and can speak to it and share it, but a lot of the time, I think that some of it gets customized for that particular dealership.
Agreed. Yeah, customized. I think a question that I would ask would be, what training? Like with us, it's easy. It's phone ninjas, right? I mean, we monitor our own agents, and they get our coaching, right? Senior coaches coach the BDC agents. So what training? I mean, are they coming in and doing it your way, or are you saying, look, your way didn't work, that's why you got us, we're doing it our way? And what is that way? What is that? Are you just answering the phone and saying sales? That would be a big one for me, because like phone ninjas, yeah, I'm all about that. But if you have XYZ call center, what are you guys doing? And are you, not domestic or overseas, but are you regionally appropriate with your team? Regionally appropriate with your team. You can't have certain people, the way they talk in certain areas, answering the phone in certain other areas. You're like, what? Where did I just call? You're going to hang up on them. Sorry, human nature, right? I mean, I sound very where I live. Okay. I might not be able to, I would not be successful in a call center in California.
So there's a great question that Drew Mint threw out, and I think we should tackle it in the forums. I
love that idea.
Yeah, as an article. And he was just asking what are the top 5 questions the virtual BDC comes across. So yeah, let's see if we can take that there, because we'd probably be here for a while longer. But yeah, TJ, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the vast majority is availability, followed by hours, stuff like that.
You'd be amazed at the calls that people get that are easy. Literally,
Like
we're having Drew on later. We're gonna slap him. We have passed the 2:00 hour, Drew, and sometimes So
we'll have Drew on soon.
Oh, for sure. So Chris,
sir,
big thanks for your time today.
Oh no, thanks for.
It's good seeing you, Chris.
Likewise. We have to coordinate next time I'm out in Maryland, or next time you guys are in Cleveland, dinner or something.
In tracksuits.
Tracksuits only. Tebow can buy.
Done.
All right. Well,
I'll get that question posted over in the forums.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll have my team look at it as well.
Cool.
Yep. All right.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend.
Happy Friday.
See ya.